Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pursuing Horizons podcast, where we are embarking on life's endless pursuit. Today, we're speaking to Alana Carter, and Alana is a race car driver. It's not often you get to say that. So, thank you so much for coming on today. Me and Rob are stoked to talk to you, and we're looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks for having me. I'm super stoked to be here.
Just
Of
to
course. So,
just to
yeah,
say
fire it
quickly,
off.
I just think it's so funny to be like, and Alana is a race car driver. Like that, there's like other like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a dinosaur. You know what I mean? But like race car driver is right there with everything too. So that's just like the
Yeah.
sickest. I had to make note of that.
May we add
I love
professional
that.
race car driver too?
Professional.
Yeah, I'm like semi not making a good living off of it. I'm very like Rob can I'm sure relate to this. It's very starving artist. It's like
Yeah,
it
man.
looks glamorous,
Oh, it looks
but I'm
awesome. That's all that matters,
Still,
man. That like you are traveling places to race cars, and that
this
is
is true.
the sickest
that's
thing
professional.
ever. Um,
Yeah.
Thank
just
you.
incredible. We can't go on without really like making note of that. Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
So first thing, every guest has to explain their origin story. So let's get into it. What got you into fitness, or what got you into even racing cars?
So yeah, my origin story is kind of similar to a lot of race car drivers, but also very different at the same time. So, most race car drivers grow up karting, and then that's just like the transition to go from go karts into race cars. I got into racing because of my dad. So, but we did oval track racing. So I got into my very first race car at 11 years old. Like I had a NASCAR license before I had a
Oh
driver's
my
license.
God.
And I did paved oval track, did a few years of that, and then switched over to dirt oval track where I spent most of my time. So, like, you guys might be familiar with what used to be Castrol Raceway out in Edmonton, but it's now Rad Torque Raceway.
Yeah.
Um, so I spent many years racing there. Really just thought that racing would be a hobby my whole life. I wanted to make enough money in my regular career that I could continue to spend money racing cars. But then I moved to Toronto because I wanted to get more into motorsports, more into automotive. I got a marketing degree and I genuinely thought that my career was going to be like corporate automotive marketing. Like my goal was to like work for Honda, which now sounds so unglorious, but at the time that was the dream. Um, and then I got a job in Toronto working for a private car club, which was a massive leg up for me because now I was just immediately in this network of really cool, really successful people who knew a lot about cars. And that's when, the it's not what you know, it's who you know became very apparent for me. And networking, like my networking just absolutely took off. I met most of the people in Toronto's automotive community within like a year, which was crazy. Um, and then there was an opportunity to do the best way I could put it is like it's like American Idol, but for race car drivers. So it,
Oh my God.
it's called like we call it a shootout. Um, so I applied for this competition called Formula Woman, and basically, yeah, it basically we went through a bunch of different rounds. So the first round was in Ottawa, well, just outside of Ottawa. It's called Calabogie Motorsports Park. So I did that, made it to like the final 50, and then I flew to England to compete again. They did another bunch of different evaluations from like fitness to media, how you present, in car, and then a karting evaluation. So I made the top 10, progressed to the final round, and then the final round was just like who could put down the fastest lap. Um, Super, super high pressure because we got no practice, and it was a track that a lot of the other girls had been on before if they were native to England, and I had never seen this track before. So we got like one out lap, one flying lap, and then in. So you had one chance to just like full send. And I was in a rental car that
Thank
was
God.
right hand drive, so I was shifting with my left hand for the first time,
Oh
which
my
was
God.
really interesting. But I came out on top and uh, basically signed a 5-year deal with this organization to become a professional race car driver,
Oh,
um, which was really crazy. So they gave me a huge leg up. I did some racing in England. Um, it wasn't like exactly what it was supposed to be. I was supposed to get a lot of things paid for, but unfortunately, they had a hard time with sponsorship. So I only ended up actually doing 2 races with them. But it was enough to kickstart my career. And then I got a lot of other opportunities. I was the first woman to race Radical Cup Canada ever,
Oh,
which was
cool.
super cool. Yeah, so I competed in this really cool, like a Radical is like such an interesting car because it's open cockpit, like a Formula One car, but it's closed wheel. So it's called a prototype. They're just like crazy fast cornering speed because they've got lots of downforce. No power steering, so I had to
Oh,
become a
sick.
gym junkie and get ripped. That was really when my fitness career started.
That's the most legit
Um,
reason to go to the gym I've ever heard.
yeah,
Yeah.
like the first time I ever drove one, it was the most humbling experience ever because by the end of the practice day, I like could not physically put the car where it needed to be anymore. My arms were noodles. Like I was like, I can't drive this thing anymore. And I always say like that was a day when I was like, I refuse to ever let my fitness be my limiting factor anymore because it's something you can't fix. Like you can't, that takes months, years to rebuild. I can't just all of a sudden be better tomorrow. Um, so that's when I got really, really disciplined with my fitness. And then come to this year, there was another shootout, which is AE Victory Racing, which I'm now racing for. So obviously you can tell I won that one. But there was a few of us that got invited to do this shootout. It was very different. It was a smaller group of people. They spent a lot more time with us. And now I have a full season racing a Toyota Supra GT4 with one of the coolest teams I've ever met. It's a woman-owned team, and her whole focus is to really uplift and get more women more successful in the space. So I've got two female co-drivers. I've got a female data engineer, female team manager. Yeah, it's a super cool team.
Wow.
And that brings us to today.
Wow. I don't even know where to start. And Bryce, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take first one here.
Yeah, give her,
Um,
give her.
there's so much there, and that what an incredible story. So first of all, congratulations, and again,
Thank you so
thank you
much.
for being here with us. Um, Question number one, and I'm just gonna not even chronologically, I'm just gonna pull this randomly. At any point when you said, okay, this is something I want to do, and also like if I know very well about like trying to use I did a reality show to get our band off, and it was the same kind of experience. Like it was like not quite what they said it was going to be, so I definitely empathize with that. But at what point in that journey, when you were first starting, Dad's showing you stuff, where you were like, this is what I want to do? And when you knew that, was what kind of resistance did you get? Was everybody around you supportive, saying like, yes, like chase your dreams, or was it, play it the safe game, try this, but maybe if there's a plan B, just kind of what that was like, deciding, oh my gosh, I want to go for this goal, I want to do this, and what that looked like.
Yeah, so growing up, like when I was a teenager, I really wanted to race cars professionally, but I just had absolutely no clue how to. And my dad was super cool. He was like, "You can do whatever you want, but like you got to figure it out on your own." Like he wasn't gonna stop me, but he was like, "Not gonna make it easy on me." And he's like, "If you can find the sponsorship to go like race in the US and do a full program, by all means." And I just had no clue what I was doing. I had never met another professional race car driver before. I didn't really think it was like possible of a thing to do because everyone in my family had only ever done it for hobby. Um, and then I actually met now one of my best friends when I was working like the auto show circuit. A lot of pro race car drivers end up working auto show when they get broke because it's like 10 days straight. You just make a bunch of money and talk to people about cars. Um, and that was the first time that I met a few professional race car drivers. And one of them, my friend Malcolm, became a massive mentor to me. And he was like, here's what you got to do. This is what we do. And he helped me a lot with that, which is also why I moved to Toronto. Um, and then there was like, I really wanted to do it, but it was just so hard. And it's so hard to like try to convince people to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sponsorship when you also have no idea what you're doing. And
Yeah.
it was when I switched over from oval track to circuit racing that I realized there's they do endurance racing where they'll prep one car but they need multiple drivers. And that was what got me into circuit racing because teams would be like, "Hey, we're looking for a driver." And I was like, "This is crazy." Like oval track people won't let you touch their car. No one, you can't pay someone to drive their car from my experience. And then I had these people that were like, "Oh yeah, just come drive my car. Like we need another driver." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And then it was really when the Formula Woman competition came up for me that I was like, "Yeah, okay, we're gonna do this," because now I had someone who was gonna pay the bills. I just needed to bring the talent. And it's actually one of the things that I'm the most proud of in my career, even though it didn't turn out to be exactly what I hoped it was. The way that I like set my mind to it and trained my butt off. I've never worked so hard towards something in my life. Like some of my friends even laugh at me because they were like, "Dude, when we first met you, like you sucked at circuit racing." Because I had only ever done oval track my whole life. Um, and we train on simulators, and going from a real car to a simulator is actually very challenging. And like everyone's like, "Dude, you were terrible on a sim. We couldn't believe that you were the pro." And I was like, I just kept grinding in the hours. Like I would work from like 10 to 6 each day, and then like 6 to almost 1 in the morning on the simulator, just busting my butt off. And yeah, then obviously once I won, I was like, you know what? Hard work fails. Like all you
Yeah.
need to do is really, really set your mind to it, and good things are bound to happen. So that was just a huge like, okay, we can do this.
I got one thing to take on this.
Yeah.
So an opposing thing to what Rob said, Rob was saying like, when was your moment that you knew you wanted to do it? I wanted to know early on, did you experience like any kind of resistance? And for yourself, how did you go about persevering through that? Because I feel like a lot of people, they're called towards something, and maybe they're influenced by people as to not do it, or they're influenced by even their own thoughts as to why they shouldn't be doing it too. So how did you persevere and like train your ass off to get to the point where like you're now in the position that you're at? Because I find that fascinating.
Yeah, so I have been actually quite fortunate in terms of like external factors and people supporting me. Like
Yeah.
my family straight up has been the most supportive, incredible people ever. All of my friends are super supportive. Like I don't unfortunately really have like a villain origin story of someone being like, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "Watch me." Because everyone around me has believed in me, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But last season when I stepped into the radical, that was an insane challenge for me. Getting into a much faster car than I'm used to, no traction control, no ABS, no power steering. It didn't have any of the safeties that I was used to. And it was really a competitive series.
Yeah.
That like challenged me to my core. The very opening race weekend that I had worked so hard for, and I thought I was going to have this incredible debut, first woman ever to race this championship, was just going to go out and like be on the podium. And um my car was just not really there. I wasn't feeling really comfortable in it, and like setup is really important. Each car, like you basically tailor the car to the driver, and setup can be great for one driver but terrible for another driver. And just the setup that we had in the car wasn't very good for my confidence. I felt like I was fighting it quite a bit, and I just did not have the pace. Like I was getting dummied, I was getting left behind, and eventually I got so fatigued from just out there fighting my own mind and fighting the car, that I made a mistake. Accidentally grabbed first gear, spun really quickly, and took out another competitor. So that was devastating for me, because I had worked so hard for this debut, and on all of my practice, I was on it. It was amazing. And then come to like the day of the event, and just like, I'm not typically one to choke under pressure, but it just wasn't there. I just didn't have the pace, and there was nothing I could do to all of a sudden get faster in the middle of a competition. Um, so that really, really sucked. And that was on the first day, and we usually race 2 days back to back. So I had to like get it together, do the typical what race car drivers will do if we're like emotional, is just keep your visor down so no one can see you
Oh,
crying. And then just
perfect.
like sat,
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just sat there and like wouldn't take off my helmet for like 30 minutes after the race until I had like gotten it together enough. And what's funny is I'm really not an emotional person. When stuff goes wrong, like I'm usually so good at just weathering it. And it's like, you know what? It's racing. Um, but I really beat myself up for that one because it was my big debut. I put so much time and effort into preparation. Um, and then to have not only ended my race, but ended another person's race because of something as simple as my left hand slipping and grabbing one too many gears. Um, that one really sucked. And I basically spent the rest of the season trying to then overcome that little demon in my head that was there.
Let's
How
let
did you overcome that? Just out of curiosity. Yeah. Unless Rob
Um,
had something else to
No,
say,
that's
but
yeah,
exactly the question is I'd love to talk about that mental battle and what that was like and how you overcame it and what got you through it.
yeah, I struggled with it a lot actually. I never really felt super comfortable in that car for a while, and then um I also like now as a more experienced driver, I have a better idea of what to ask for out of the car. Like, oh, it's feeling like this, we can change this. Where after that initial race, um I felt like I kind of froze. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to ask for. I don't know why the car is scaring me, but the car is scaring me. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Um, and then when we went to Toronto Indy, um, which is on the streets of Toronto, it's a really crazy race. Uh, we like the I didn't really like the setup for the first opening practice, and I was still really nervous, and I just wasn't getting into flow state. And flow state is absolutely critical for race car drivers, but I was just in my head. I was thinking the whole time. And then we went out for the first race, and the track had rubbered in from the other cars going on track, and all of a sudden, like the setup that we had in my car and the track aligned and I was on fire. It was the best like I had ever felt, and I was like, oh my god. And I qualified third, and I was just like, wait, this is the race car driver I knew I could be all season. Why is the stars just aligning now? And then that kind of gave me the confidence again to just be like, no, I am good at this. There's a reason I'm here. Like, there's a reason I've gotten this far, and to just keep pushing. And then the following race after that was actually the best race I had all season because my confidence was there. I knew I just needed to wheel the car and get out of my head. And then that was when I got the best finish all year. Was our August race. I got a fourth place finish, so I was at least like, okay, we're competitive. We're
Yeah.
here. I'm not a lap. Like, I'm not lap traffic. But yeah, it did really take most of the season to get myself out of that headspace and to even be comfortable asking for changes in my car because I had just gotten into this like I'm the problem. Clearly, I'm the problem. If I'm terrified of this car, it's just me. But once we had started getting the car to a place where I was more comfortable, then I was wheeling again and I was just driving
Yeah.
the car like I always knew how.
And you said something there that we're very passionate about, and that's flow state. And that
Mm-hmm.
comes across like all disciplines, all sports, and even just life. That seems to be the key where people talk about miracles or synchronicities falling in line. And I would love for you to talk more about what that flow state felt like, or how you first experienced it, how you encountered it in life, and like what you do to try to get there.
Yeah, so um, flow state is huge. So now the series that I raced last year, we did 40-minute races. What I'm racing this year, we do 8-hour endurance races. So the car runs for 8 hours straight, and me and my teammates will typically have the maximum amount of time you can be in the car is 3 hours. So usually we'll do like, 2.5-ish each, depending on what ends up happening with pit stop strategy. But my first race of the season, I was in the car for 3 hours straight. I had never done 3 hours straight in a race car
Wow.
before. Like even during practice, we don't practice that because you come in, you chill for a second, you review some footage, and then you go back out. Um, and seriously, like I would say probably like 20 minutes in, once the adrenaline kind of chills out from the pit stop and all of the hecticness that's going on, it's like you're out of body. You are just driving that car and you're not even thinking about it. And like I actually have to go back to my footage to be like, oh yeah, okay, when that happened, because I'm just driving the car subconsciously, basically. Um, but that's for me, at least, when I do my best work. Like,
Yeah.
I, even at the end of my 3 hour stint, I was like, okay, guys, like, pull me in, like, tap me out, coach. I don't want to be in this car anymore. And they're like, but you're not going any slower. Like, you've been in the car for 3 hours and your lap times haven't changed. So they're like, you're going to stay out until we have to pull you out. And I was like, oh, God.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so it's just crazy how good your body can be, that even when, like, mentally I felt like I was fading, my body was still going through the motions and doing the thing.
Wow. There's so much I'm listening to this like literally a fan being like, wow. You've said so many phrases that I'm taking. I'm only ever gonna say I have to go just wheel this car when I'm driving. That's the only thing. And I
So
never ever want to be accused of being lap traffic. That is so funny. That's
that,
those are my two new phrases. That's so, and I
yeah,
as soon as you said that, I saw it and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's hilarious.
yeah.
Bryce, I'll let you take next question here.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I'd want to ask is like how did you prepare for like a 8 hour or like a 3 hour race? Because you said you were doing something that was like super short before. So how much notice did you get before doing this 3 hour stint, or was it like pretty brief and then you just kind of like got thrown into it, or did you have some prep time?
I had quite a bit of prep time. So I knew, like,
Okay.
as of January that I was going to be doing these long stints, and then my first race wasn't until end of February. So I at least had 2 months to prepare. I had done endurance racing before, but we only ever did 2 hours at a time.
Hmm.
But quite frequently, whichever team I was on would make me do the opening stint and then make me get back in the car for the end of the day.
Mm,
So I have raced for 4 hours at a time before. Well, I guess 4 hours throughout a day, but I had never done the full 3 hours like without taking a break, which was a whole new experience. I also just remembered you asked me how I tap into flow state,
oh
and I
yeah, yeah,
forgot to
yeah.
answer that
Yes,
one.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, I got very, very fortunate last year. I actually won a scholarship to work with like one of the world's best cognitive performance coaches.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, Dr. Jacques Dallaire. He
Oh
is
yeah.
phenomenal. And I went and I worked with him for like 2 days straight, and we basically just like analyzed the way I am, how I perform when I'm at my best, um, and how to pull that out of me. So he taught me what he calls the ACT model, if you read his book, um, and it's basically like you find the exact state that you have performed your best. So when you had your best performance ever, figure out what that was, and then you like figure out ways to recall that. So for me,
Mhm.
like every single time I train, every single time I get in the car, I've got like a few words that I repeat to myself to like lock myself in, and it actually helps so much. Like I finished last season just not feeling super great about the way that the season went. Like, I know that a lot of people were like, "Oh, but you had an amazing year, and we watched you all develop so much." But I just really felt like I was not the driver that I could have been, and I felt like there was so much more for me there. Um, and I really had a lot of confidence issues. And then coming into this year, now working with Jacques, like I perform every time I get in the car. Like I don't have nerves anymore, which is crazy. Like you get butterflies, um, but like I don't really get nervous, and I just kind of get in the car and do my job, and it's methodical now. Um, so that has been like an absolute crazy game changer for me.
Yeah, that's man, to soak up those 48 hours with someone like that, that must have been incredible. And that's all we hear
Yeah,
about, right? Is we hear about like, the stars aligned for one time and I've just been never able to get back there. And how do we get back there? And then we've all experienced that flow state in such different ways too, where it's like, I know for me, just like if I'm just working on something I want to at home and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm feeling all the resistance to it. And then all of a sudden it's just like 45 minutes went by and I did everything I need to do. And figuring out how to just completely always access that seems to be such a big key in, again, pursuing all these dreams. Um,
yeah,
in that, bringing it back to the fitness side of things too. So, my dad worked on muscle cars growing up, and that was kind of like
nice.
that was my intro to it. I've always loved cars, and I've like didn't understand. My mom was always into, she had like newer cars and stuff, and I didn't understand power steering versus strong arm. And you mentioning like that really caught you off guard, as it did me, a kid. I remember being like thinking I was all tough, being able to drive these cool cars my dad had, but I couldn't. So let's chat about that. Let's chat about what that felt like. You said it
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, my body won't let me do this, and that's unacceptable, and what the training looked like for that.
Yeah. It was a lot of upper body strength that I had never really trained for before. Like, so now the car that I'm racing this year has power steering, it has all of the fancy gadgets. Um, so I really just kind of have to have some cardio to be able to last the 3 hours without fatiguing. Um, but in the radical, those cars corner at 200 kilometers an hour with no power steering. So you're
Jeez.
just like,
Oh my
through the
gosh.
corner. Um, and yeah, it was just incredibly humbling to realize how hard it is to drive that thing full pace for 40 minutes straight. I was like, ah, 40 minutes is nothing. I've raced for 2 hours before. No, that was different. Like the last lap, I was like, get me out of this car.
Yeah.
And I just had to take training much more seriously. I started working with a personal trainer who has been a game changer for me. He's absolutely amazing. And yeah, I had to train my shoulders, my traps, my chest got big. I was like, I've never looked like this before,
Yeah.
but I'm here for functionality, not physique, so I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, really, really training like the front of my shoulders that I had never
Hmm.
thought about before. Um, because these muscles would just start to give up on me because
Yeah.
I had never used them. Um, yeah, I just kicked it up into high gear,
Yeah.
training wise and repetition wise, and using different muscles that I had never really trained before.
Totally. And that brings me into a follow-up. And I, like growing up, I was into like the big four sports, right? I mean, I ended up getting the skateboarding and music took me where I got to, but it was always, hockey, football, baseball, basketball. But I loved cars. And like grew up in like after the Days of Thunder movie came out, and I was just
Yep.
obsessed, obsessed. But I also got in a car crash young, and I was really scared. And it really kind of like I've really like adopted my love of cars now again. But what I'm getting at is people will be like, "Oh, how can you call that a sport? It's not athletically demanding." But I think we know now. We know it is very,
Oh yeah.
very athletically demanding, right? And we even see the same thing in like the way people treat golfers, where it's like it's not the case anymore. Like these guys are big, the bat guys and girls are big and jacked. And what do you find other okay, so when you were getting used to the steering, obviously like anterior delt, front of the shoulder, that's starting to go, all the muscles be used, the core stability. When you're in like those 3 hour windows, what's the most fatigue? Like what kind of fatigue do you feel after that? Is it all mental, or like what parts of like what physical parts are really what muscles do you really feel just like drained after a race like that?
So it depends. In my current car that I'm racing right now, it's very friendly to drive. It's not bad at all. For me, I really had to work on my right glute hilariously.
Yo, yeah,
Um,
totally.
and it's the right glute wasn't because of like the pressure on the pedal because I brake with my left foot. So like my left glute is much more overdeveloped than my right because we use a lot of brake pressure. Like depending on the race car, you can do like, 85 kilograms of brake pressure every 10 seconds. Um, so my right glute was actually because I felt like in some places, like when we're going through like a long corner, I'm hovering my right foot over the pedal. So it was like holding
Oh
this
yeah.
weird position, this really unnatural position for hours on end. And if your ergonomics in that car are not perfect, you're gonna feel it because it's repetitive over and over and over for 3 hours straight. Um, so you'll really feel it when you get out of the car if something wasn't in the perfect position. But honestly, the car that I'm in, like the first race, I struggled with my glute a little bit, and then I just went and trained that area more. And by the time we got to our second race of the season, like wasn't a problem. Um, a lot of this stuff you can like drive yourself into shape too, but
Yeah.
that's only if you get enough seat time, and seat time is really expensive in these cars. Um, so then the next thing I would say is Probably mental fatigue. Like at the end of when you're getting to that like 2.5 hour mark, you'll start to notice yourself making like stupid little mistakes, and you're like, oh, okay, we have to lock ourselves back in now because I don't normally screw up like that. And it's just like little stuff, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to make a bigger mistake. Um, but in the hot races, like in our midsummer ones, it's the heat
Oh
fatigue that
yeah.
will get you.
Hmm.
It gets so freaking hot in those cars. And we have a blower that like blows air, but it's especially in a front engine car, the air is just running right past the engine, so it's blowing hot air at you, which is better than nothing, but not that great. Um, and we also, I've never used one before, but I'm gonna have to use one this summer. We have what's called cool suits. So they plug into like a chiller and like, well, you basically put like a cooler of ice in the car, and it'll circulate cold water through a shirt around your body
Oh
to
my
help keep
gosh.
your body temperature down. Yeah, because it gets like, if you think about it, I'm gonna be racing in Atlanta in the middle of July. Probably gonna be like 30 degrees and humid.
Very
And
humid.
that's outside the car. So then inside a tin car where the sun is beating down, like it gets really, really, really hot in there. And yeah, I probably get like heat fatigue and dehydration. But it's the biggest thing that I would start to notice. My cat is like clawing at the door right now. I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry.
We're a cat friendly pod.
A
Oh,
little, but
good.
nothing too bad.
Yeah.
I had a quick question for you then. So you mentioned like there would obviously be like a fairly large amount of mental fatigue towards the end of like a 3 hour stint. So, being that you're driving, like, and you probably can't really be consuming caffeine, how would you be like blasting through this mental fatigue, or at least trying to like maintain like some sort of like homeostasis of focus? Because like I see that being challenging, especially like even for myself, for example, like if I'm driving to Jasper, like I need to take a break, and like that's
Yeah.
not driving at 200 kilometers an hour. So like, how would you just get focused again? And like, yeah, how would you do that? I'm curious.
Um, like definitely training is the most important thing. So I use my simulator a lot, and I will
Yeah.
sit down and just like I used to not practice as seriously, but now I'm kind of recognizing it's like, well, if I want to be able to focus in the car in real life for 3 hours, I need to sit down and be able to do it on my simulator without making a mistake for 3 hours straight. So I take my simulator work a lot more seriously now, just
Mm.
to kind of get myself used to it. So hopefully I don't fatigue as much. Um, I do have a lot of weird tactics, and it's things that like work for each specific
Let's
person.
talk about it.
Tell
That's
us
cool.
all of those
So
weird ones.
yeah, so when I'm starting to fade in the car or like get nervous or kind of fall out of my flow state, I will sing. I will like scream sing in the car. I was actually doing it when we were in Alabama last, and I realized that I needed to stop because I was getting myself out of breath
Oh
from
yeah.
singing.
What are the go-to songs?
So I've got a playlist of like a few songs, but it kind of is just like whatever's stuck in my head at the moment. My last race, for some reason, I was like scream singing like classical music, like
Cool.
just like ba 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 da da. It was
Cool.
absolutely unhinged of me, and I don't think that's a normal thing for race car drivers to do. That's what works for me, but I don't think that's like a common race car driver thing. Um, Also, we can communicate with our team on the radio. So
Oh yeah.
sometimes when we're like getting bored out there, we'll be like, "Hey guys, like I need some entertainment. Someone talk to me." Um,
Tell me what's
and
trending.
Tell me
yeah,
what's trending.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it really just depends. Like when we're in the heat of battle and like there's cars all around you, I swear 3 hours flies by. But
Yeah.
when we really get bored is so some tracks that we race at, we do what's called a code 35. So when there's a car getting towed off track or when there's been an incident, rather than pulling all of the cars in to clean up the incident, we just all have to slow down to 35 miles an hour. And it is like so much harder to drive at 35 miles an hour in a race car than to drive at like the 200 kilometers an hour that we're used to. It's that is the painful part is when we're like, guys, oh, it's so
Slow.
slow. Like, I need relief.
Yeah.
So that part is really, really challenging. But sometimes it's kind of nice. You get a little bit of a break. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of different tactics. I sing, I yap with my team on the radio, and then when I realize like, okay, it's time to lock in, like I just tell myself that, and I'll like use the same 7 words that I'm trained to use to get myself into flow state and just kind of bring myself back.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, that's awesome. I'm a big fan of like I literally like flail my arms around and like jump, and I combine like music singing with like some fitness stuff I know just to get myself in the mode of like performing back in the day
Yeah.
there. But that's awesome to hear. Um and is there any moments in this career where like, like again, forgive my ignorance here of just like the general fan of this,
That's
but
okay.
like people are always like, oh, the wrecks, right? Have you witnessed anything, been a part of anything? And I'm sorry if this is a touchy subject with it, that maybe the fear really started to come in. And have you ever felt that fear of just like what you're actually doing is so incredible? But again, it sounds like you kind of grew up with it and always had that comfort. But have you ever experienced just that true fear of it?
Yeah, so I really actually struggled with fear last season just because like I said, like I just didn't really trust that car. There was
Hmm.
something that setup and me and that car were not getting along, and I didn't know what to do about it. So I just started kind of retreating as a driver and almost getting worse and worse and worse. Um, and the fear actually really became a thing for me because I didn't trust the car. So I felt like it was going to do something weird and do something unpredictable. When you trust the car, your confidence just grows and grows and grows because you're like, I do this, the car does that, we're great, we've got a great relationship. Um, but when weird stuff starts to happen, like even when there's in other experiences that I've had, like when there's a part starting to fail and all of a sudden the car starts doing weird stuff. That's when it gets scary for me, is when all of a sudden the car is unpredictable and you're like, okay, so I turn in at, you know, 150 kilometers an hour into this corner. Like the last track that we were at was Road America, and it's one of the most high speed tracks in North America. And if you think about it, and you're like, okay, I go into this corner every single time, and we go from 230 kilometers an hour, bring it back down to 70 kilometers an hour. And then one time you do the exact same thing that you normally do, and the car does something different. That's when it's like, whoa, oh my God,
Oh my
okay, what's
gosh.
going on here? Um, so yeah, it's the unpredictability for me that can get a little bit spooky. But that is unfortunately just part of our sport,
Yeah.
and you have to get through that. And I know some really, really good drivers that can like absolutely wheel and manhandle a car that is being diabolical. So that's part of me to just become a better driver and get comfortable driving something that's not ideal. Because it's not always going to be ideal, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sometimes you miss the setup. But
Wow.
How how did you work on trusting yourself more when you're trusting the vehicle less?
uh, to be honest, I just got a lot of grit last year, and it was terrifying. And I just like I just bit the bullet and was like, the nice thing is the Radical, which I raced last year, it's a very aero dependent car. So the faster you go, the more grip you actually have. So
Okay.
there was a few times when people were like, "Oh yeah, you can take this corner full throttle," and I was just like, "Okay." And I just like buckled up and did it, and then you're like, "Okay, I survived." Okay, cool. That wasn't too bad, maybe. But it's a lot of just like sending it and then realizing that it was okay, which is
Okay.
terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, sending it and then realizing it was okay. That is the key, though. Anything I've ever experienced in skateboarding is that. It's like the second you doubt it, it's like you're done. You're done. The second you doubt it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and we're very methodical about it. So it's like if um, well, it depends. Like the car that I'm racing now, you can kind of inch up to things and realize like, okay, so I braked say at the 200 board, and that was fine. I was able to get through the corner. Then I'm going to push it back a couple more feet, and you push, push, push until all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, that's a little bit too far. But you only pushed like maybe a couple feet at a time. So when you go over, you're only going over by a little bit and not
Mm.
a lot. The struggle with the aero cars is there's like this sweet spot of you can't really inch yourself into it, because if I go too slow, I lose grip and all of a sudden I can't do that corner. But when you go full send, you've got all of this downforce, and all of a sudden it's a miracle and you can do it. So there was a lot of just like nut up or shut up last year, and I
Yeah,
just had to do it.
love that. What are, oh, 1 second, dog here.
That's okay.
Hold up.
I can take it if you like. Yeah.
Sweet.
Rob can come back to this after because I have a question about the fitness side of things. How did you actually work on sustaining your personal fitness with traveling? Because I feel like obviously not everybody races cars, but people are on vacations, they're traveling, and obviously there is a degree of structure that you need to be successful, right? So for you, how did you focus on like building that structure and sustaining it with you while you're traveling and making it work for you, probably like till this day too?
That is probably the hardest part, is staying consistent. Because I also like I said, like I'm not a full professional, I'm not making a living off of this. So I have a
Mhm.
normal job that has to get me through the day and pay bills with. Um, so I do a lot of traveling for work. I do a lot of like automotive events.
Cool.
And usually when I'm in a hotel, I'm a lover of a good hotel gym. Like, doesn't matter, Holiday Inn Express, I'm in there. Um, so I just really had to become very, very disciplined about that. And, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. The more frequently that you work out, and once you really like dedicate yourself to fitness for at least a year, you start to thrive off of it. And you're like, I don't want to
Hmm.
miss a workout because I feel like garbage when I miss a workout. So it became a little bit easier for me. Um, but I just have to carry the momentum, because then once I take a break for a couple days, it's so hard to get back. Um, and I have like mobility bands that come with me, because that's the most frustrating part, is if I'm in like an Airbnb, I don't have a gym or weights or anything to work with. So I end up just going for a run, or using bands, doing like a home at home band workout,
Yeah.
which doesn't always feel great, but you get the job done. And that's really how I've stuck to it, and just trying to be as disciplined as I can be, but also still being kind to myself. And like, I'm not a workout every day type of person. I
Hmm.
recognize that it's probably more realistic for me to do 4 really good workouts a week than try to do 6 half-ass workouts a week. Um,
Yeah.
and just, there has been a lot of like empathy, being kind to myself, recognizing that not every day has to be a good day, but still trying to show up for yourself in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And I think there's a good point you made there too about like keeping the ball rolling. Cause like
Mm,
sometimes I think what people tend to do is they'll go for a while and they'll stop, but then you have to get the ball rolling again. Whereas like you made a good point there too about just trying to adapt to your environment. And I think that's like really important and like probably a big takeaway for people here too is like sometimes you're not going to be like in ideal circumstances where you have access to the same equipment that you normally do. But like doing something is going to be better than doing nothing at all. And for you
exactly.
especially too, you probably started seeing like the immediate benefits with your racing and you're like, okay, I'm bought in. Like this is all I needed, right?
Yeah, and sometimes, like, unfortunately, guilt is one of my biggest motivators, and just reminding myself of how much it sucked when I wasn't in good enough shape, and reminding myself of like how incredible the opportunities that I have right now are, and the fact that
Yeah.
these opportunities are not always going to be there. And it's like, if there's any time to grind, it's right now. And like you said, something is better than nothing. I'm better off going for like a 30-minute run than doing absolutely nothing that day.
Yeah. Rob, you can take the next one now.
Sure, yeah, sorry about that. She's so excited to
You're good.
be like every
That's
dog
okay.
that walks by just so excited. So what I was going to ask is, what are some of the best on your journey to do this? What are some of the best resources you've encountered? Whether it's a book that really spoke to you, someone's story that really spoke to you, a podcast, a mentor, anything like that that would just really like I'm a big fan of collaboration, and I'm a big fan of like a big collective mind where we can help each other achieve our goals. So what are the ones that really got through to you that you carry along with you now?
Um, Dr. Jacques Dallaire, as I
Yeah.
already said, was a massive game changer. He has a book that's called Performance Thinking for something. I'm trying to remember it. But he's absolutely amazing. His teachings were so cool for me of just learning how to control your inner voice and remembering that it's like you are actually in control of the thoughts going on inside your head. And if you beat yourself up, you are the one beating yourself up. So don't do that. And yeah, I really like his teachings because he talks a lot about like how important the subconscious is and how you basically, these are not his exact words, but this is my digested version of it. Like you become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe to your core that you're going to be successful, you're going to be successful. And if you believe to your core that you're just unlucky and bad things happen to you, well, bad things are probably going to happen to you. Or at least the small bad things that happen, you're going to emphasize so much that that's all you see. Um, but that and mentorship for sure.
Mm.
I have been very fortunate to have some incredible mentors. My mentor, Roger, is one of the best ones, especially being a woman in a male dominated space. I have typically been like a people pleaser. I didn't want to ruffle feathers most of my life. And having someone who really, really has a backbone, like when I call him and I'm like, hey, so this just happened. And he's like, that's not okay. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't sure. He's like, no, that's really not okay. You need to do something about that. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Like, thanks for the reassurance. Um, so having someone else to kind of remind you like when you need to speak up for yourself, what stuff is important to stand up for and what stuff is a waste of your energy. He's been an incredible mentor for me. And then most recently, I've been very fortunate to find Erin Vogel, who is my team owner this year, and having a female role model and actually having someone who has been through it is incredible. Like, it's really interesting because I didn't have too many female role models in this space, and I was a bit more of my own trailblazer to a degree. And now racing surrounded by women who have more experience than me is like the craziest stress relief in the world for me. It's
Cool.
just like, oh, they get it. Oh, I feel so seen. And like, I got so lucky to, go on this wellness retreat with Erin and really, really get to know her. And all of my like bad stories and crazy things that I had encountered, she was like, oh yeah, like I totally know what you're talking about. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel seen. This is
Yeah.
amazing. And working with her has been an absolutely incredible experience. And surrounding myself with more and more women has been super, super cool and fulfilling.
Yeah.
Quick follow up that just came to me there. Two questions actually, and you can jump all over them if you'd like to. But
Totally.
if this wasn't what you were doing, what was the plan? What was the plan B?
Um,
Career wise.
so anything in the automotive space.
Okay,
I
perfect.
just loved cars. I love being around them. Now what's really cool is I actually have enough skills in motorsports to do motorsports adjacent things. So even if I never really make a living off of racing cars, now I have enough skills to coach people. And I just
Cool.
recently started working at the Porsche Experience Center in Toronto, which is super
Jeez.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And now my life has just changed so much where before I thought I was going to work like corporate marketing. And now I'm in the business of like giving people the best day of their life, which is
Cool.
super cool.
Hmm.
Like, I absolutely love it, especially when we have people who come through and they're just like, you know what, I may never do this again, but that was the coolest thing I've ever done. And empowering people and getting them comfortable behind the wheel and maybe leaving them safer drivers. And sometimes it's crazy challenging.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
believe
it
it. I
is
believe it.
very, very hard to be a good teacher in a high stress environment and try to communicate to someone when we're putting both of our lives at risk is
Yeah.
one of the bigger challenges I've faced, but it is incredibly, incredibly rewarding. And I love working in that space where it's like my job to teach people how to have fun.
Yeah, that's what an incredible like statement that is. And
Yeah,
I almost forgot this, and this is almost like just a question for me, but I think anybody listening to this
absolutely.
would take a lot out of it. But let's say it's the night before a big race. Until you get behind the wheel, what does that preparation look like? Or is there any weird little quirks that come out, or is like what's that routine like of preparation to the second you're behind the wheel?
So the goal for me is to be as consistent as possible, which is hard when you're traveling, but like I always want to be predictable for my body. Eat the same meals if I can, go to sleep at the same time, which is also hard when you're on different time zones. Um, Getting enough rest is huge for me. It's so hard to do in motorsports because often we're up late, like working on the car, figuring out a strategy for the next day, having meetings. And we all travel in from all over North America. So sometimes our flights don't line up perfectly, but just really, really prioritizing sleep for me, getting a good breakfast. I am a one coffee girl. Like I have learned that I like one coffee, but two is too many. Um, Hydrating like crazy. I'm a big electrolyte taker now. So we take lots of electrolytes to make sure that, you know, we're properly hydrated, but not just flushing it right out of our system. Um, and then when it comes to actually getting myself into the car, you know, you gear up. The second you've got
Mhm.
your suit on, you start to feel a little bit more like, okay, this is serious. We're doing this. Um, I like to put my AirPods in and listen to the same playlist every time. So I've kind of got like same like 20 songs or something that it's like every time I listen to this song, I'm just telling my brain like, okay, it's game time. Um, and then helmet on. And then honestly, after that, the adrenaline kind of just takes over. Like when we do a pit stop, pit stops are so stressful because we're basically trying to fuel up the car, get the old driver in, get the new, or get the old driver out, get the new driver in, strapped up safely. Obviously, you want to be strapped in properly, but we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. And it gets very stressful sometimes. So it's just like you the second it's like, okay, they're coming in now, you just get locked in. Like there is no hesitation left anymore. It's like, okay, it's game time. Let's go.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
very high stress.
Yeah, like the only thing I can even relate it to is just how we used to feel knowing we were when our shows got bigger and we were starting to play like NHL arenas. That the feeling behind, I just never prepared for it because my goal was only to ever play like 500 people, never arenas. And I remember being like, this is not the same. Like there is an arena full of people and I have to walk up this little ramp and getting myself in that mind frame. And I was young and stupid at that point. So I love hearing people's like preparation compared to when they were, unprepared. But that's awesome. It's such a benefit to know all these things about yourself. And that kind of
Yeah.
it seems to be a huge part of what success is like learn yourself, don't mimic, learn who you are, what's going to serve you, what's going to be the best supporting system for you to thrive in. And it's super, super cool to hear that. It's really cool to hear about that Porsche experience too. That's awesome. What a cool
Yeah,
job.
I'm
Yeah.
super excited about that. There's like a bunch of cool things. So we're like the first Porsche experience in the world to operate under snow conditions. So that's going to be interesting. Um, and yeah, I'm really excited. And what's also cool is like having these skills as a driver has opened up other areas of my career. So I've done a little bit of stunt driving for
Oh my
commercials, and I'm trying
gosh.
to get into movies because that is way more lucrative than actually being a race car driver.
Yeah.
But being a race car driver gives me the skills to do that.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to talk to you again when that happens. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Hell yeah.
One kind of like I think final point before we wrap it up is like I think it's super cool how you yourself have like seen so much benefit from mentorship and from coaching and how you're continuing this now through the Porsche experience. I think it's kind of cool how these things come full circle, how like that was so impactful and influential on your career. And now you're like sharing that down, which I think is like super cool. And I think it's also like a good takeaway from this too. It's like be willing to invest in yourself and surround yourself with people that believe in you because like that's
Yeah.
huge. And if you surround yourself with people that like are on a similar wavelength, they want the same things as you, and they also see your potential, like it's impossible to fail.
Yeah. And quickly too, for anyone listening that has a wild dream kind of stewing in their brain and they're scared to act on it, what would you tell them?
Honestly, just do it. Like, for me, I have a few different mantras that I go through when the going gets tough because trust me, it gets tough. Like this is an industry that really requires resilience because it is constantly an uphill battle. Um, but for me, my biggest one is if it was easy, everyone would do it. Um, and like there's a reason that, only select few make it, and it has to do less so with talent and more so with resilience. Um, and like if not when, or if well, no, was it? If not now, when?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And like literally, what's the worst that can happen? You embarrass, like, for me, if it comes down to like embarrassing myself, having to move back in with my parents because I'm broke, whatever, like I don't really care. I would much rather have the experience and know that I tried than be stuck in this perpetual like what if. And I don't want to like wake up one day and be like, I really wish I would have given that a better shot. I really wish I would have tried harder. For me, it's like I'm putting in enough effort that if this doesn't work out, it wasn't meant to be, and I can confidently say that.
Very cool.
Alana
Thank you.
Carter, everyone. Thank you so much for coming on today. If people want to stay up
Guys,
to date with you and like what you do, where can they follow you and see you race on tracks and everything?
so Instagram is where I'm definitely the most active on. It's just Alana.Carter. And I'm hoping to get the YouTube channel up soon. Unfortunately, I always forget to hit record when I'm getting into the heat of the moment,
Yeah,
but
always.
we'll see. Yeah. And I race the World Racing League Championship, so there is live streams for all of those races. But our next race is 14 hours long, so I don't expect anyone to actually watch the whole race. You can just tune in whenever you feel like it.
You never know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you again. This is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you
much,
guys for
Alana.
having
That
me.
was excellent. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Of course, this was super fun.
Perfect.